So the first thing that you do when you're at 5 p.m. and people are getting ready for drinks is to acknowledge that I'll try to finish this faster. All right? Hopefully that by doing that, I'll have all of you listening for the next 10 to 15 minutes to me. All right. So today we're going to talk about code to codeless. And no conversation is complete at Uncork if you do not spend a minute or two talking about codeless. Forget the journey of it. But by doing that, I'll probably talk about in quick 2 minutes what I have been doing as an hypothesis check with my customers when it comes to codeless. And I've been using this conversation. Syntax versus semantics. Is it the code syntax versus the business semantics? Right? So to test it out with my customers, I always ask them this question. Today you have hundreds and hundreds of your technology folks, developers, potentially creators of tomorrow. But are they focusing on the semantics or are they focusing on the syntax today? I get varied mixed answers. So I try to do some quick fun stuff with them along the way. Remember, syntax could be equated to grammar, the way we write it in English language. So I wrote something in English language out there and I put it out on my favorite AI grammar language tool to see how was I doing. And all I wrote was, John Doe is a married bachelor. But then I looked back at what the tool was telling me in this conversation. Looking good, correctness, clarity, very clear, very engaging, just the right delivery, awesome style. Did you see it? I just wrote the right syntax. Every single word is right. But, Mr. John Doe, either you can be married or you can be a bachelor. Remember, this is New York, not Vegas. And for some of you who might be thinking it's 5 o'clock and I could potentially be both, maybe, a couple of hours to go. Yeah? But that is, what if I were to tell you this is exactly what happens today in each enterprise? We're just too much focused on the syntax part and we lose on the semantics. The semantics is exactly what binds business and IT together to come together and solve the real problems, right? Not always the syntax, as my AI tool is telling you out here. Having said that, moving from code to codeless, let's look at the journeys and let's look at the use cases our customers are using Uncork for today as they take this journey from code to codeless. So we try to go ahead and put them into what we do, try to see if they fit a bell curve. Another interesting conversation. On the left-hand side, what you see is legacy code. Could be mainframes, COBOL, VB, something else. SharePoints, right? AWDs, you name it, it belongs there. On the right-hand side is what some of our other friends typically talk about in the cloud native side of the house. Still some code, sometimes a lot of code, but it's code. And in between, we did try to figure out what kind of problems can Uncork solve in this area, in this bell curve in between. We said, can it go ahead and take legacy applications and modernize them? And it was a tick, and I'll talk about some examples. We asked, can it go ahead and do digitization of business processes by itself and help create process apps or business apps? And you have heard examples all day long about customer onboardings, about regulatory and compliance fundamentals, right? And multiple other use cases in this area. Then we said, can Uncork literally take some of the apps that are on-prem and convert it to cloud and also coexist with all the other cloud-native apps that we have built out there? And we were still able to go ahead and leverage Uncork for those purposes out there. So till date, we've been testing Uncork out for the last 2.5 to 3 years that we've been working on this technology platform and trying to figure out where do we test it out along with our customers and where do we figure out what's the breaking point? Where do we go ahead and say, come back to Gary and team and say, Gary, This does not work over here. Yeah? Now, let me take some good examples out here. One such example is this regulatory compliance area where our customer had some issues on the dispute transaction settlement reporting and had to meet some compliance timelines and deadlines. Happens to us all the time. Being able to leverage Uncork, less than 18 weeks, put it into production, but that's not the end of it. What if I were to tell you they are ready to monetize this and sell it to other parties as well? Yeah? Think about that bell curve I just spoke a few minutes back in the last slide. Where do I push Uncork to? Not just solve my problems, but actually monetize those problems that I solved by using it to sell it to other customers, either in my industry or across industries. That's the beauty of it. Now, you've also heard from today morning about a lot of legacy modernization, movement to cloud use cases, and they work best with Uncork. But the question is, can you continue to do it one at a time? Because in today's context, you're potentially sitting on hundreds, sometimes thousands of those legacy apps. Right? Somebody please come and tell me if they're not sitting on hundreds of these apps today in your enterprises. If you're not, awesome, you made it. We need to celebrate you today, right, itself. But if you are, then what you need is this part of the story, which is about going ahead and leveraging Uncork to help you migrate those legacy apps at a speed and at a pace with which you do not have to carve down that modernization roadmap for 3 to 5 years, but can get done with those thousands of apps in 9 to 12 months. Let me repeat that. Those hundreds and thousands of legacy applications built around multiple different technologies into Uncork in 9 to 12 months. That is what we are working with Uncork today to figure out and enable and make it happen. And obviously, for the people who are dealing with the large hyperscalers in your organizations, this also means that if your CIOs signed up for an enterprise ELAs and so on and so forth on the hyperscalers but are not consuming those subscriptions enough today, this is another beautiful way to leverage Infosys and Uncork partnership to move these hundreds and thousands of applications to cloud using Uncork with a codeless architecture. That way, you have all the tick marks that Gary spoke about in the morning, which Uncork can potentially provide you with Infosys help. The next one is how do we enable creators, but how do we enable hundreds of creators? And by the way, when we refer to creators as both problem finders as well as solvers, not just solvers. Remember today, we actually need more finders than solvers in some cases, right? It's a combination of those finders and solvers that we call as creators, but the ability to have these creators ramp up again in large scale rather than 5, 10, 15 at a time to solve problems and improve on the business capabilities that our business needs more and more of today. Also to have these creators be able to work with more, with much less, with whatever is going to come and hit us hopefully, or not hopefully, in the next couple of months or years, who knows, but being able to leverage those, and hence Infosys again partnered with Uncork to provide something that we're calling it as app as a service, right? And all the methodology around it, right from intake management, demand management, being able to auto-create some of these applications, being able to leverage some of our applications in the Uncork marketplace, and then customizing it fairly quickly with the help of these creators such that they can continue to do more with less is some of these solutions that we have built out there. All right, so just to summarize fairly quickly, remember next time you have a code versus codeless conversation, it's about the syntax versus semantics. please do focus on semantics. Even if John Doe escaped with no scars, you might not be able to. Second, there's a ton of use cases that you might not have explored with Uncork that fit in the bell curve that we have tested Uncork with, and at the size and scale of that transformation that we can help you with for moving your legacy on-prem workloads and applications to cloud with Uncork in a codeless architecture. So thank you for the time, and I'm thinking I'm ahead of the time. Thank you.